Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala abdillahi wa rasulih wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in ma ba'd. This is the continuation of a summarized explanation. A summarized explanation by one of the contemporary Shuyukh of Egypt, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Aziz, of the famous book Shu'ab Iman by Imam al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah ta'ala. Kitab al-Jali al-Muqtasir wal-Bayan fi Shu'ab Iman al-Bayhaqi. That's the whole title of the book. And jelly means something that's lofty, something that its position, its status in itself is higher than others. That's why one of the names of Allah is Jalali, the lofty. They say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This means he's jalala, he's superb. When they say Allahu azza wa, and then they say jalla here means something that's lofty. So the Shaykh made the name of this explanation a ta'liq al-jali, a lofty commentary والمختصر في بيان شعبة الإيمان البيهقي. Now, so this inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala will continue. Today inshallah we want to try to wrap up the section on Iman billah. And in fact, we could go on with belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we want to take as many of the branches of Iman as possible. So if we just stay on that one first branch, we can be here until it gets cold. We can be here for months. We could be here for 6 months, really a year. When we talk about the issue of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, belief in Him, it branches out. Just that part alone. You have names and attributes of Allah wa ta'ala. You have ibadat. You have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you just talk about His names and attributes, there's different aspects to that. His names from the Quran, His names from the Sunnah, which name, every name comes from, is extracted from. Does every name have a action to match it or characteristic? Like the brother say, "Hey, Akhi, what's your attribute?" Astaghfirullah. He's looking at him like, "What?" But every name of Allah Azza wa Jalla, has an attribute. Now, and not every attribute has a name, because some actions, descriptions, we want to say every action of Allah is not done just because He says that He has that action to go with the name. Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jalla has an action because somebody did something. And because he's just and he's all wise, then he does it back to them in a way that they don't realize it or that they won't understand what's coming. So many times it said, his actions and his descriptions are more than his names. So that's another area. Then you have what type of names and attributes and actions that the Prophet mentioned, or authentic hadith that are not mentioned in the Quran. So you have that. Then you have what type of hadith that are da'if, that people forge, use to say that Allah does this, Allah does that. And you have the deniers of the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then those who give a interpretation away from its true meaning. And so on and so forth. So you can go all the way, really, until you can't go anymore, and still have some more to talk about regarding belief in Allah, because in actuality, everything that's related to Allah is still in some way belief in Allah. But we want to take from the book itself more than just Shurbatul Ula, the first branch, which is belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to try to finish up today's class and tonight's class, which is classes twice. It's now, so for the Maghrib. We want to try to take it, wrap it up, and then next week we'll go to Shurbatul Thaniya, if Allah wills, or we may even break ground on the second Shurba today, inshallah, and then we can go 3, 4, 5, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his help. So, if we back up, let's take the hadith of Abu Hurairah. The hadith of Abu Hurairah, which is in the Bukhari and the Muslim. Everybody has it in their collection, and it's the hadith where Abu Hurairah said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Imanu bid'un with the ayn, bid'un, that it is Iman is, and we said bid'un is the word that's used to say 3 to 9. So if someone said bid'un, they're not talking about 1 and 2. They're talking about from 3 to 9. Then once you get to 10, then you start again with the 10s, and then after 10 is from 3 to 9. The word bid'un reflects that number. If you say 1 is in a class by itself, and 2 is a class by itself. Now bid'un is from 3 to 9. So here Abu Hurairah said the Iman bid'un wa sittun aw sittuna bid'un wa sittuna aw sab'una shu'ba, that the Prophet said 60 or 70 branches. The Iman has 60, Abu Hurairah said, or he said 70 something branches. When you read the hadith, or he said is not there. So you think that the Prophet is saying 60 or 70, but we said no. Anytime you see or in English or in Arabic, an aleph and a waw in the narration, that's never the Prophet. That's always the companion saying clearly and emphatically that it was either this or that, so he doesn't misrepresent, he doesn't misappropriate, he does not lie on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you have to fill in the blank whenever you read a book and it says or in the narration. It's not the Prophet. It's never the Prophet. It's the narrator. No matter where the or comes in at, it's never the Prophet. It could be in the beginning of the narration, the middle of the narration, the end of the narration. That part is the statement of the narrator, the companion, or someone in the chain. It's not the Prophet. So Abu Hurairah said that the Prophet said that Iman is 60, or then put in parentheses in the dash. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 70 something branches. Why? Because the narrator is not sure. And he said, A'laha, hold on. A'laha, the highest part. A'laha, the highest part. Either Farha, the most raised part. Wa'abdaliha, the most blessed part. Qawlun la ilaha illallah is la ilaha illallah. Anything after that, Qawlun la ilaha illallah, is going down from the highest all the way down to the lowest. And that's why the Prophet said, wa adanaha. Adana means less. Adanaha, ha here refers to, it's a pronoun referring to the subject matter. What's the subject matter? Branches of Iman. So it's lowest. What's lowest? The branches of Iman. Prophet Sallam said, imatatu yani adha'u an tariqi, to move something, to erase something harmful from the path of the people. That's the least amount of a branch of Iman, the least amount of an action in Iman that you can do. One of them. Because in another hadith, the Prophet Sallam said, Ad'afu, the weakest. And so here when he said the weakest in the other hadith, he was talking about disliking something that's haram, that you have no ability circumstantially or physically to change with the hand, nor can you change it with the tongue. So in that hadith, the Prophet said the least or the weakest of Iman is to hate that thing in the heart and to wish and yearn if you could do something about it with either the hand or the tongue, and circumstances would allow you not to make a bigger problem for yourself or others, you would do it. So here, Adana, the least, also could mean the weakest. These are interchangeable concepts that mean the same thing. The least is the weakest, and the most is the strongest. When this hadith of Sallam said, moving something from the rule of the people is the least of the branches, the least of Iman. Then he came back and said, وَالْحَيَاءُ Shu'ab min al-Iman, as if that's in the class by itself, and to be embarrassed to do wrong, to be shamed to do wrong, to shy away from doing wrong, to be someone who does not want to do wrong to Allah, to people, to be someone who the issue of doing wrong is enough to make you go away from wrong. The Prophet said this is a branch of Iman by itself. So that is the hadith that we're still working with the issue of the branches of Iman. We mentioned the last class that the Iman, it increases and decreases. It increases with obedience. It increases with obedience, meaning the more you obey Allah, the more your Iman increases. It increases with obedience. The more you obey Allah, your Iman increases. The Shaykh also said it increases with taqwa. What is taqwa? Taqwa is to do what Allah commands you. And taqwa is to stay away from what Allah forbade you. That's taqwa. Sometimes we think taqwa is just doing right, praying, fasting. But taqwa also is to stay away from the bad things, to avoid the prohibited things. So here, one of the meanings, the ulama, they said, that your Iman will increase with taqwa. The more you do right, in layman terms, and stay away from wrong, your Iman will increase. So it increases with obedience. It increases with taqwa. It increases, we said, with knowledge. So a man increases with obedience, number one. Number two, it increases with taqwa, which means obeying Allah and staying away from what's wrong. If you just say it increases with obedience, some people might think, as long as I obey Allah, it's okay. If I do wrong, it doesn't matter because I'm obeying Allah. Your Iman is going to take a plunge. So it's important to come with the second thing that increases Iman, taqwa. Because taqwa means to do both. Obey do the good and obey, avoid the bad. Number 3, it increases with al-ilm, knowledge. Your iman will increase. Knowledge means that you know something, it penetrates the heart, you use it. The more you have of tools, Islamic knowledge, and you use it, how can your iman not increase? Don't think iman increases with knowledge means you read 10 books and you can sit and talk with me in dialogue and quote all of the jargons, Islamic phrases, and your iman is going to increase. That you'll go out and won't drink a beer, won't smoke a blunt, won't go to your girl's house, won't go, stick somebody up because, I got knowledge. I read 10 books. That's not the meaning. It's not the meaning. And we see it every day. The guy's quoting, Allahumma musta'an, mentioning this, mentioning that, sounds good on paper. He's the biggest criminal in the world. Big beard, prostration mark. What the hell is he doing in the newspaper for armed robbery? If his knowledge increased him in Iman, it didn't increase him in Iman. Because knowledge here, as Abdullah ibn Abbas said, khashya. Knowledge is something that makes you afraid to disobey Allah Ta'ala. That's the knowledge that here increases you in Iman. Now, what is the opposite? Your Iman can decrease. Your Iman can decrease. It can minimize. It can take a plunge. It can become almost gone. And then if it increases with obedience, then what's the opposite? It decreases with what? Disobedience. Barakallahu fikum. And if Iman increases with taqwa, then it decreases with ma'asi. Ma'asi is the opposite of taqwa or asyan, to transgress the limits set by Allah. If it increases with al-ilm, knowledge, and application and understanding, then knowledge will decrease with jahl, ignorance. Having something that you know, but you doing you. Having something you know, but following your desires over what you know. Following something that you know will get you to the hellfire over what will lead you to the Jannah is pure jahl, ignorance. That will make your iman decrease. Now, it will make your iman decrease. So we mentioned that before. Also, when we're leading up to the main part for continuing the dars, but this has to take place because when I mentioned the next thing from today's lesson, I wanted to connect. The next thing is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. Man qala, man means whosoever. Qala, he says, also means she says, la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah, they will enter the paradise. Rasulullah also said, man qala la ilaha illallah, Rasulullah said, man qala la ilaha illallah, hadith Uthman ibn Affan. Rasulullah said, man mata. Mata means die. So here the man is important in Arabic again. Not M-A-N, the man like a lady. Man here in Arabic means whoever, or he, or it could mean she. So the Prophet said, man mat, whoever dies. وَهُوَ يَعْلَمُ from ilm. Huwa ya'lam, he knows. Man mat, whoever dies. وَهُوَ يَعْلَمُ, and he knows. أَنَّهُ, that La ilaha illallah, there's no other deity besides Allah, dakhala jannah. So you have two things. And this is the premise of the dars today as we move forward. Remember, The Prophet ﷺ said in the Hadith of Abu Hurairah, from the highest branch of Iman is what?
La ilaha illallah.
The highest branch of Iman is what?
La ilaha illallah.
Say it. But don't forget, the Prophet said, colon, la ilaha, the statement. That means you got to say it on your tongue. It's not just the existence of the Shahada to be the highest branch of Iman, but it's for you to say it. For you as a Muslim. If you don't say it, then how is it Iman? So the hadith is, yani, a'laha qawlun, the statement. So qawlun here means that the Muslim has to say it. The Muslims have to say it. So you have two conditions here for the statement La ilaha illallah to be a benefit for anybody. It just being a fact and the reality doesn't benefit me. Did it benefit Abi Talib? The fact that that's a true statement?
No.
No. Did it benefit Fir'aun, the fact that that's a true reality?
No.
No. Did it benefit Al-La'in Iblis?
No.
No. When does it benefit you? When you have two components. You say it, condition number one, and
Belief
it's in your heart. So that hadith is talking about the statement. For you, me, everybody. That highest branch, the Prophet didn't say, yani, la ilaha illallah. He said, qawlun, which indicates, the scholar said, the statement, meaning on your tongue, on his tongue, on her tongue, on whoever enters Islam, it has to be on their tongue. That ulama, they said, except that person's prevented from saying it. If that person's prevented from saying it, then they can say it or indicate it another way. They won't be held accountable. Someone who lost his voice. He writes on the paper, I want to take Shahada. Gives you the paper. You look at it, but he can't say it. He lost his voice. You can say it, and then he can do like this and smile. Someone who can't say it because maybe he or she is injured. But, they can still respond. Nod the head, move a finger, exception to the rule. A person, maybe his mouth is gagged with tape. And you're asking him the question, and he can't say it because his mouth is gagged. But he can nod, he can blink his eye, he can acknowledge it. These are the exceptions to the rule. But the general rule, have to say it. So the Prophet said, Man qala la ilaha illallah. Here's the proof. That hadith means the statement. The Prophet said in the other hadith, Man qala la ilaha illallah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah, dakhala jannah. He'll enter paradise. Now, what did the Prophet mean by that? Did they mean absolutely everybody who says it? Or is there some details to that hadith? For example, the munafiqeen, they said it. During the time of the Prophet, Ubay ibn Salul, the head of the munafiqeen, prayed with the Prophet, fasted with the Prophet, went out in expeditions with the Prophet, fought side by side with the Prophet. But Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed that he's from the Rats al-Munafiqeen. He's the head of the Munafiqeen. One who accepts Islam only to infiltrate and to pollute the Muslims that were there, to set false principles, to try and derail the mission of the Prophet ﷺ while he's saying he's a Muslim. He doesn't believe it in his heart. So the statement of the Prophet, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah, he will enter paradise. It automatically means, and he believes. Remember, we said the tasdeeq, to believe in Arabic, doesn't mean that you just say it on your tongue, you make a claim. It also means iqrarin bil qalb, that it's in your heart, settled there, automatically. So the Prophet said, Man qala la ilaha illallah. The shahid here means the point of the hadith you want to use for your evidence. Man qala, whoever says what? La ilaha illallah. So you have to say it. The other hadith that shows the second condition, saying it is one. The second, the Prophet said, Man mat, wa huwa ya'lamu annahu la ilaha illallah, dakhala al-jannah. Whoever dies and he has knowledge of, he's certain of, it's in his heart that there is no one worthy of worship except Allah, he'll enter the paradise. So the scholar said these two conditions must be present with the belief in Allah. The tongue and in your heart, you know it. You believe in it in your heart. You're not in doubt. You're not saying it on the tongue, but not sure. It's in your heart. No matter what, it's there. So knowledge, yani, here in the qalb, in that particular yani, hadith, and in that particular, what is considered a condition of the first Shu'ab of Iman, the highest one, the statement to say La ilaha illallah on the tongue is a condition for that pillar of, or that branch of Iman, and the knowledge you must be certain in the heart. When the Prophet ﷺ said that if you say La ilaha illallah, you will enter paradise, he's talking about the people that say it and believe it in their heart, and not just saying one who says it, because a Christian can say it. We just said a hypocrite can say it. Someone can say it, making mockery, playing, not being serious. They're not included in whoever says La ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. He's talking about the one who says it sadiqan. He's truthful. He means it. And you can only say it and be meaning it from the heart, which is a type of knowledge. Some would call it yaqeen, certainty. There's other hadith to prove that it is mustayqiyan yani bil qalbi, that it's certain in your heart. That's another condition. But part of the issue of knowledge is that you have to be certain. You have to be certain. So the next point, after we make sure we understand that from the conditions of La ilaha illallah for us, that it be accepted as a branch of Iman for us, is part of our belief, is that it has two conditions. The first one is what?
The tongue.
And the second one is
the heart.
Ilm, in the heart. You know it. Yeah. Tayyib. So if you take that part of the Shu'ab al-Iman, branch of faith, the next thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, وَأَنْ عُذِبَ, when عُذِبَ, even if that person has to be punished. He's talking about the people who say it and they believe it. He's talking about the people of the Muslims. Because you have a Muslim and you have mu'min. Muslim, and this is a big part of people's belief today, that if you do any sin, you're not a real Muslim. How many times where people say, he's eating a pork sandwich, he's not a real Muslim. He's drinking beer, he's not a real Muslim. He called himself a Muslim, he's getting high. Some people actually mean that you're not a Muslim. Others mean he professed, he's calling himself a Muslim. He's not a true Muslim, meaning he's a Muslim, but he's not living up to the qualities, the characteristics of the Muslim. As remember, one of the words the Sheikh said, Qisala, or Khaslatul Iman, characteristics of Iman. So that person who the Prophet ﷺ said, when Uliba, he will go to Jannah if he believes it, says is on his tongue, even if he has to be punished first. So even if he has to be punished first, means that the Sheikh said two things. If you have some sins that you didn't make Tawbah from in this life, this is a problem because sometimes, we're stubborn. We don't want to take this as a thing that should be done when you talk about Tawbah. And what is Tawbah? Tawbah is to feel bad about a deed that you did. You have to acknowledge that it's wrong first. Then feel bad about it. You have to stop and you have to make the determination, I'm not going back. Each time you do it, you start over. I was weak. I got trapped off. It's a struggle. Feel bad about it all over again. Say, oh Allah, forgive me. Leave it. I'm not going back. Don't go back until eventually one day you will either not go back or you will die making Tawbah and Allah could forgive you because you made sincere Tawbah, or you will be doing that thing at the time of death, and because you died before you did it repetitively again, you were written down as a person of Tawbah. But we don't look at it like that. We So here the Prophet is saying, we're in udhiba. Even if that Muslim ends up having to be punished. Why would he be punished? Number one, because he did the sins. The thing that decreased his Iman. Number two, he or she didn't make Tawbah. They didn't make Tawbah at all, or they didn't make continuous Tawbah, or they made Tawbah, but the Tawbah wasn't correct. Because one of the things that makes the Tawbah correct, when you feel bad about it, after you know it's wrong, you stop it, you don't go back. When you don't go back, that's how you know it's a sincere Tawbah. If you go back, your Tawbah wasn't right. Tawbah wasn't right. So, the Prophet said, "Udhiba," meaning even if the person has to be punished, he won't be in the fire forever, because this is part of the meaning, man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah with his tongue, وَيَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, he dies and he has it in his heart, he knows that Allah is his Lord, دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ. That also means when udhiba, if he has to be punished even. Because some people will be punished, again, they didn't make Tawbah. And it's up to Allah to forgive you. If Allah forgives you, khalas, mashallah, you go. If Allah don't forgive you, guess what? You should have been someone who made Tawbah, or you got to go to the fire, but you'll come out. You got to go to the fire, but you'll come out. So this is part of the meaning, whoever says La ilaha illallah, whoever dies and he knows La ilaha illallah, he will enter Jannah. Meaning, either right away, because he was a person that didn't have any sins, because he didn't do them. Some people don't do sins. Major sins, some people don't do them. Wallah. They're rare, but they exist. Number two, because he did or she did major sins, but they made sincere, correct Tawbah. So they don't have the sins because they left them. Number three, they did the sins, didn't make Tawbah, Allah didn't forgive them, so now they have to go to the fire, but they'll go to the Jannah with a delay. They'll go to the Jannah with a delay. Those people who had the sins because they did them, or they didn't make Tawbah, or those people, their Tawbah was not correct. But the people who didn't have the sins when they died, or they had them in the life but they made Tawbah, and their Tawbah was correct, then they are the ones that will go to Jannah, in the beginning. They'll go straight. They'll go straight. So this, when the Prophet mentions this, we have to understand from the branches of Iman, whoever says La ilaha illallah, and he says it sincerely, and he says it knowingly, she says it sincerely, she says it knowingly, and that person dies without the sins because they left him. May Allah make us from those people. Ameen. Or they made Tawbah, and the Tawbah was clean, sincere. May Allah make us from those people. Ameen. Then those people, guess what? They go straight to the Jannah. They don't have no pit stops, no hold-ups. They go straight. But the one who has some sin, the one who did not make the Tawbah, the one who made Tawbah, but the Tawbah wasn't sahih, it wasn't right because they kept going back and they died in a state of that sin without making Tawbah and not going back, then that person will go to Jannah. This is part of the belief and part of the branch of Iman. You'll go to Jannah, but guess what? You won't go right away. Why? Because you have to go and be punished first. This is the meaning when the Prophet said, وَإِنْ عُذِبَ وَإِنْ عُذِبَ. Even if he has to be punished by Allah, he or she will go. Who is he or she will go? From the branch of Iman, whoever says it on the tongue, believing in it sincerely, saying it and knowing it in his heart that it's true, he or she will enter the Jannah. Is that clear?
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
So, what is the meaning of whoever says La ilaha illallah, they will enter Jannah? Quickly, from what you just heard.
Statement that has to come from the tongue.
From the tongue. Listen, that statement has to come from the tongue.
And it has to be, the second, it has to be with belief in the heart.
Belief in the heart. Belief in the heart is considered what?
True Iman.
And it's considered true Iman. It's considered also what?
Knowledge.
Aywa, barakallahu fikum. That's very important to transfer that over. Because knowledge is of different types. Here, it's a thing in the heart that you know. Sometimes knowledge is something that you practice. So it's very important. Tayyib. So that's the meaning of whoever says La ilaha illallah, dakhala Jannah. What about the meaning of the hadith? Whoever dies and he knows that there is no deity besides Allah, he will enter Jannah. What is the meaning of that hadith? He knows in his heart. What is the meaning of that hadith? That's what we just mentioned. What does that mean? Anybody?
He will enter Jannah, but it's conditions to that.
Whoever dies and he knows here means in his heart that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, he will enter Jannah. What is the meaning of that hadith as it relates to what we just mentioned in the class? Remember, two conditions. The tongue, have to say it. The heart, you have to know it, believe it in the heart. Those two conditions of the highest branch of Iman, La ilaha illallah, must be present. The tongue and the heart. So one just got mentioned, that the person must say it sincerely, truthfully with the tongue, and he must believe it. And it was also mentioned, Ibrahim said, the Shaykh said also, not only this is considered true Iman, but it's also considered knowledge. Type of knowledge that you have that in your heart. You believe that, you know that. So now we're asking the hadith, because the Prophet said whoever dies and he says La ilaha illallah, dakhala Jannah. So Ibrahim gave the explanation back that that person has to say it and he has to be true to it and believe it. Now we're taking the second hadith that we mentioned. Whoever dies, وَهُوَ يَعْلَمُ, and he knows أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, that there is no deity besides Allah, دَخَلَ Jannah. So in light of the Shu'ab, the branches of Iman, how should that hadith be understood? Remember, two conditions, tongue and heart. So here, وَهُوَ يَعْلَمُ, the heart.
Might be a person who committed some kind of sin that he didn't repent from, and but he dies upon with belief of statement from his tongue, and he really believes it in his heart, but he may have committed some kind of sin that he didn't repent from.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. You kind of scared me for a minute. When you threw the tongue in there, I said, shh. Because had you just kept going with that and didn't add the tongue, then no. Because if we take what Umar was saying, Barakallahu fikum, both of you, may Allah bless you all. If we just take the hadith, the heart part, without the tongue, who does that resemble? That they had it in their heart, but they never said it on the tongue.
Could be a death.
Who does that resemble that we know? Huh?
Mercy.
Who?
Mercy.
La. You came late, so you gotta get the whole thing. We're talking about, before we go to the next part of the lesson, we back up. The two conditions. The statement, La ilaha illallah, by itself means nothing. We have to say it. If we're just talking about the existence of the Shahada, it doesn't benefit anybody that it exists. It didn't benefit Fir'aun. It didn't benefit Iblis. It didn't benefit Abi Talib. Just that fact is true. For us, from the branches of Iman, the Prophet said, Qawlun la ilaha illallah, the statement, that means we have to say it. So from the conditions for it to be the highest branch for us, a person, you have to say it. Number two, it has to be in the heart. Everything we took from that, beginning dars to now, that has to be understood. That the Shahada, for it to be something beneficial for us, we have to say it. Just the fact that it's true has no benefit for us. Just the fact that it is a reality has no benefit. When does it benefit us? When we say it and we know it, we believe it in our heart. So there's two hadith we mentioned. The Prophet said, and the Shaykh he brought these two hadith. This is the Shaykh's statement. The Prophet said, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. And the other hadith, the Prophet said, Man mata, whoever dies, wa huwa ya'lamu annahu la ilaha illallah dakhala jannah. Whoever dies and he knows, meaning here, that there is no deity except him, Allah, to be worshipped, he enters Jannah. So I asked firstly, and Ibrahim answered, if we take the first hadith, how and what does it mean in light of the shirk to the Iman? Does it mean anybody? The Prophet said it, but does it mean anybody? No, it means the one who says it on his tongue, except that he is restricted. If he can't speak because he doesn't have a voice, then that's the exception to the rule. If he can coherently do this, make a finger, blink an eye, that's the exception to the rule. But if the person could speak, that condition has to speak. So does the Prophet mean anybody? No. If a Jehovah's Witness say La ilaha illallah, he enters Jannah?
No.
If the Buddha say La ilaha illallah, he enters Jannah?
No.
If the Rastafari says La ilaha, does he enter Jannah?
No.
If the Papa says La ilaha illallah, does he enter Jannah?
No.
If the nation of Islam, fruit of Islam, and the NOI say La ilaha illallah, he enters Jannah?
No.
Who enters Jannah if he says La ilaha illallah?
One who believes it, makes the statement from his and believes it, has knowledge of it.
Where at?
In his
In
heart.
his heart.
Zakaballah khair. Those are two conditions. So that's the first hadith. The Prophet said it, whoever says La ilaha illallah Jannah, but they don't mean that. It means with detail, and he says it, believing in it, truthfully, from his tongue
And the heart.
and his heart. The second hadith, Man mata wa ya'lam annahu la ilaha illallah Jannah. Whoever dies and he knows. He knows here means the same thing as he believes. So knowledge here doesn't mean you say it and you practice it. It means it's something in the heart. Just like we say, i'tiqad is tied into the heart. Why is it tied into the heart? Because he knows it. You couldn't cut it out of his heart. He knows it. And so the question was, we'll stop at 1:30, inshallah. We started at 12:20. Okay, so if a person knows it in his heart, but doesn't say it, who does that resemble? Now, I just gave you a list of people and creatures that, but didn't say it.
Christians.
Who was the main one? When we talk about the seer of the prophet, was here but never said it.
His uncle.
Hey, wow. Barakallah. Gotta have that in the front of your head, man. Didn't I be told of Ya'lamahu? Didn't he know that?
Yes, he did.
Anybody here could say he didn't?
And
Is it anybody here to say he didn't understand it? He knew it.
No, and so did the disbelievers. They knew about La ilaha illallah. They knew it. They knew what it meant, but they didn't believe it.
But they're not talking about knowing what it meant. And those other disbelievers, they didn't know what it meant. Because they made shirk to Allah Azza wa Jal. When you know it, we're not going to invoke idols. We're not going to have idols to bring you blessings. We're not going to, slaughter some meat in the name of some idol to ward off evil. They didn't know it. They knew it from the perspective of who created us, who created the sun and the moon. So for them, that's not Tawheed. Tawheed doesn't mean Rububiyyah. It means Rububiyyah and Uluhiyyah. Knowing the Lordship and who you should be worshiping, who you shouldn't be making shirk to. So that's the Mushrikun Awalun. Those the pagans of Mecca. Had not, they would have been Muslim. Yeah. But Abu Talib, Ya'lamuhu, he was certain, he knew it. He wasn't worshiping no idols.
No.
He didn't make no shirk. And those people, in contrast to Abu Talib, they wanted to stop the Islam. Did Abu Talib try to stop Islam? No. He did what?
He benefited.
No. Iowa, he ate it.
He ate it.
But what was the point that matches this hadith? Man mad huwa ya'lamu annahu la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. Whoever dies and he knows, he has the knowledge in his heart that there's no one that should be worshipped except Allah, he enters Jannah. What's the caveat to this hadith in Abi Talib?
He didn't say it with the tongue.
Ooh, we shining, brother man. Allahu Akbar. He didn't say it with the tongue. You see the importance of those two conditions? Ya'lam. Because how is he not going to know it and aid the Prophet and the Muslims in that? That's he knows.
Yeah, he knew.
He don't want that on him. I'm going to be involved and let them harm these people who I know that there's no deity worthy of worship. Like, I just got to figure out how I'm going to get this thing off my tongue because they're looking, they're going to, blame me. They're going to say, we're going to leave the belief of your forefathers, which on his deathbed, what happened? That happened.
He refused.
It happened. Yeah. That's what he was worried about. Nah, that's what he was worried about. Same thing, another example. Allah musta'an. Ya la ilaha illa Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Khadija's uncle. He was the one who told Khadija that Muhammad is not Majnun. This is the same angel that came to Musa alayhi salam. That means what? Ya'lam. He knew. And the prophet said, had he been alive during this time, he would have worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So maybe his case, on the day of judgment, he won't be punished because he knew. And it's possible that he would not have rejected it based upon that statement of the Prophet. But Abi Talib, his is clear. Mat ala al-kufr, and the Prophet's at his deathbed, telling him, Yani, ya ammi, hu la ilaha illallah. Or my uncle said la ilaha illallah. Yani, tajiduha, yani, shafi'an laka, yawm al-qiyamah. You're going to find it in your best interest on the day of judgment. Lakin abad, wa mat ala al-kufr. But he refused because he had them two people on one side telling him, you're going to do that? You're going to leave the way of your forefathers for Muhammad? He was back and forth, and he died before he could make up his mind and say it, Allah musta'an. So this is very important. If the person says it and he doesn't have it, the ilm, the yaqeen, the certainty in his heart, la yanfa, doesn't benefit. And if the person knows it in his heart, he could do all the good with the Muslims, protect them, but he never says it, doesn't benefit him. You have to have both of them. That is, to say it on the tongue and have the knowledge of it, the belief of it, the knowledge of it in the heart. Those are two conditions that the Shaykh is bringing here for the statement, La ilaha illallah, for us to be a benefit for us from the branches of Iman. Tayyib, the statement of the Prophet, whoever dies and he says La ilaha illallah, no, the other hadith, whoever says La ilaha illallah, he will enter Jannah. The Prophet is talking about provided they have these two conditions, at least. The second thing, they will enter Jannah, yani either right away, because they had, again, sins that they did, and they made tawbah. Sins that they did, and they made tawbah. And the tawbah was correct tawbah, meaning once they knew it was wrong, they felt bad. They knew it was wrong, gotta have ilm. They felt bad about it, number 2. They stopped it, number 3. Number 4, they didn't go back. If they die like that, that's a person of Tawbah, he goes to Jannah. He goes straight to Jannah, in other words. But if the person knew it was wrong, and he felt bad about it, and he stopped it, but he went back, then that Tawbah, the scholar said, is not a correct Tawbah, because you went back. It's not a correct Tawbah. It's a Tawbah, but it's not Tawbah Sahih. You didn't stay the course, you went back. So if that person dies, then it's up to Allah to forgive him or not. If Allah forgives him, then guess what? He can go straight with the other people who had sins. They made Tawbah. The Tawbah was Sahih. They go to Jannah. The one who Allah forgives, he goes just with the one who made the correct Tawbah and he has no sins. Or the one who Allah forgives is like the one who has no sins. And we said this before. Some people don't have no sins because they didn't make them. It's very rare, but those people exist. They don't make the major sins. They don't. So you either don't make the sin, number 1. Number 2, you make it, but you make a correct tawbah. You feel bad, you stop, you don't go back, you die, you go to Jannah, straight. Or you do the thing, you feel bad about it, pardon me, you do the thing, you stop it, you feel bad about the sin, you stop it, you don't go back, then that person, he's from the people that made the correct tawbah, and that person doesn't have any sin. So those people are the ones that the Prophet is talking about when he says, whoever says La ilaha illallah, they go to Jannah. All 3 of those categories, meaning right away or delayed. The people that's going delayed, because they meet Allah with the sin. They did it, number 1. They didn't make tawbah, number 2. Or they made tawbah, is not right because they went back. Those people have to be punished, but they'll go to the Jannah. That's why the Prophet said, وَإِنْ عُذِبَ, even if they have to be punished. وَإِنْ عُذِبَ, even if they have to be punished, they'll go to the Jannah. So that part is very important to understand, because these are part of the meanings of whoever says La ilaha illallah, he will go to Jannah. Meaning either right away or delayed. Either right away or delayed. So when you talk about that issue, that should inspire us to stay away from the sins. That's why, again, the Shaykh said, your Iman increases with what? Obedience. That's the first thing the Shaykh said. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that it increased with obedience while you're still doing bad. That's why the other scholars said it increased with what? Taqwa, Zakallah Khayr. Because taqwa is to do both. Taqwa is to obey Allah, like they normally say, your iman increase with obedience. But taqwa is to obey Allah and doing what's right, and to obey Allah with staying away from what? What's wrong. Yeah. And also, your iman increases with what? Ilm. Knowledge. And we're not talking about, again, we said reading books, you read a whole 2-3 books, and you could sit and conversate and throw out terms, and then you go out and you do wrong. That's not ilm. Ilm is that you read, you understand, and that knowledge becomes hajjus, bainaka wa baina dhunubik, that it becomes a barrier between you and the wrong that you want to do. That's knowledge. That's why Abdullah ibn Abbas said that ilm, khashya. Allah said, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Those who really have the knowledge that makes them fear Allah, those who know. الْعُلَمَاءُ على وزن فُعَلَاءُ صيغة مبالغة, an exaggerated form of the Arabic word, one who is dhul ilm, he has knowledge. So here when Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned the statement, he's talking about alim haqiqi, someone who really knows he's not going to be doing sins. Why? Because the knowledge is going to be a barrier between that person and the sin. That's why the Prophet ﷺ described ulama su'i, people that have the knowledge, but he's corrupted. Why? Because he sins. Goes back to the issue of, is the alim a saint, an angel? Does he make human mistakes? Can he make major sins? Yeah. Yeah. If he's not fearing Allah with the knowledge, if it's just what he memorized and what he knows, how could I say? Allah protect us. Ameen. So this, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, whoever says La ilaha illallah dakhal al-jannah, has context. And man matu wa ya'lam annahu la ilaha dakhal al-jannah, wa dies and he knows, that statement is true, he enters Jannah. Which now, go to the next part, that is Imam al-Bayhaqi, rahimahullah ta'ala, that is Shu'batul Ula. Shu'batul Mada al-Ula. The second Shu'ba that the Imam he brings in his book. And we said again, we could talk 6 months on this first Shu'ba. We could talk a year, literally, on the Shu'batul Ula, belief in Allah. But we try to move through the book. So the Imam he said, and I gave you what the Sheikh in his summarized version gave you. I gave you everything. I didn't skip anything, by the way. May Allah accept from me and you. Ameen. Sheikh said, the Shu'batul Thaniya, the second Shu'ba, the second branch of Iman. Now, what do you think the second branch of Iman is? And what comes to mind when you hear belief in Allah, branches of Iman? Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said, Amana Rasulu bima unzila ilayhi min rabbihi wal mu'minun. The messenger believes in that which was sent to him from his Lord, and those who believe as well. Kullun amana billahi. All of them say, we believe in Allah. What's next?
Believe in the messenger.
La.
Believe in the angel.
Wa malaikatihi, his angels.
And the books.
Wa kutubihi, his books.
The messengers.
Wa rasuli. Now that. So, belief in Allah, malaika, kutubi wa rasulihi, and
the day of judgment.
wal yawm al-akhir.
Yawm al-akhir.
And sadis minhum, and tu'minu bil qadr, to believe in the divine decree of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
And the qadr.
That's 6.
Yeah.
But you don't say and the qadr. You have to say and to believe.
And to believe.
Yeah, if you say and the qadr, you violate what the Prophet ﷺ said. He said what and tu'minu. He went back to that. And another word he said when tu'minu bil ba'th, to believe in the resurrection. So, the decree of Allah, number 6, or the resurrection, number 6. Ayyuhum masadis. And one word in the Prophet said, when tu'minu bil qadri khayrihi wa sharrihi, To believe shar'i. To believe in the divine decree, the good things that happen and the bad things that happen. وَفِي لَفْظٍ وَأَن تُؤْمِنُوا بِالْبَعْثِ. To believe in the resurrection. أَيُّهُمَا السَّادِسُ? Which one is sixth? The decree of Allah or the resurrection?
The decree.
The decree. So what we do with the ba'ath? The resurrection. What we do with that? It's two wordings. Prophet has two wordings, and the Sahih of Imam Muslim, he said, "When tu'minu bi qadrihi khayrihi wa sharrihi, yani khayrihi wa sharrihi." To believe in the divine decree of Allah, the good and the bad. Wa inda Imam Bukhari, Allah will tu'minu bil ba'th. To believe in the resurrection. Which one is number 6? Does one cancel out the other?
No.
So how do we jamu bainahuma? How do we combine between the two? How can we say there's 6? But here the Prophet said qadr and being resurrected from the grave. Which one is 6? This is some Talib ilm stuff here. She already know the answer. She hold the well, she probably do.
The resurrection was already stipulated as number 5. It's stipulated by itself.
So, in actuality, number 6 is the qadr.
Right.
The ba'th is a detail of the decree. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's already stipulated in the decree that you'll be resurrected.
Right.
Jazakumullah khairan. Hada huwa. Nah. That's why the Prophet mentioned it like that. La ya'arid yani wahid al-akhar. One doesn't yani negate or to contradict the other. The ba'ath is part of the decree. And it's part of, yani number 5, as he said, yani it's part of Yawm al-Akhir. So the ba'ath is part of 5 and 6. It's decree and it's part of how you're going to get to the last day. Now, take it. So, Imam al-Bayhaqi, different from the ayah, آمن رسول ما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. رسوله, number 4 in the ayah. But the Imam al-Bayhaqi, الشبة الثاني يعني في شبة الإيمان يعني ماذا يعني إيمان برسل, to believe in the messengers. Belief in the message. Now, why do you think the Imam did that? Think about it. Reflect on the hadith we just took. Al-Iman, as Abu Hurairah said, the Prophet said it's either 60-something or 70-something yani shurba. What's the highest branch of Iman?
La ilaha illallah.
Barakallahu feek. Naam, barakallahu feeki. Qawlan la ilaha. This is important. We mentioned again. If you say the highest branch is la ilaha illallah, that's not what the Prophet said, number 1. And number 2, how does that benefit us if that's the case?
No, it doesn't.
It's the colon.
To say it from the
To say it, yeah. And that's why it's 2 conditions to it for us to say and believe it. So that statement, La ilaha illallah, is it belief in Allah or belief in Allah and His messenger, or is it belief in the messenger? Which one? 3 things. La ilaha illallah, qawlun la ilaha illallah, it's a statement that you have to say, does it mean belief in Allah? I believe in Allah. Does it mean belief in the messenger? Or does it mean belief in Allah and His messenger? How do you become a Muslim?
Saying
the shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
So what do you have to do to become a Muslim?
You have to
You have to
say,
believe-
you just have to say both.
Have to say both. We're talking about the saying part now. Take. So this is why the Imam Bayhaqi brought, rather than how the ayat is, dig this, pay attention. Understand it. Yani tafham jade, understand this real good. This is why the Imam didn't take the ayat and say, belief in Allah, shurba number 1. Shurba number 2, belief in the angel. Shurba number 3, the books. Shurba number 4, yani rusul. He took the 4th one and put it number 2. Why? Because of what we just said. You can't become a Muslim. Remember, again, this whole thing is about how it is for us, branches of Iman, the believer, not the existence of it. How do we make it our Iman? So in order to make that tree a root for us and branches for us, we have to say it and believe it. What's the order of the Shahada? Shahada to Allah and Aywa. Look at the fiqh of the ulama. Had he brought belief in Allah and then his message like the ayah, somebody would think you could just believe in Allah and not believe in his what?
Messenger.
Oh, wow. How many people believe that? How many people believe that? And what group believes that the most? Shia believe, mashallah alayhi. The Shia believe you can believe in Allah and not his messenger. That's why they have all of this stuff. And all of their deen is different from what the Prophet came with. Another group, we talk about them as it relates to America and the jazz musicians and Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. What's the group that believes in Allah but they don't believe in the Prophet?
Nation, what do you call it?
The. You could say the nation, but they don't believe in Allah nor his messenger. We say they believe in Allah, but not his messenger. Qadi.
Qadiani.
Aywa, mashallah. Another name for them is the Ahmadiyyans.
Yeah.
They believe in Allah, but they don't believe in the messenger. Wallah musta'an. So this is why the Imam brought the second Shu'ab, belief in the messengers. And inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala, we'll stop here tonight. Inshallah, we'll bring some more details from that. And inshallah ta'ala, next Sunday, if Allah wills, so something kind of Nabina Muhammad.
Alhamdulillah.